Hello everyone and welcome to Werven's World. Today I would like to give you 6 tips for new players on Sorcerer King. Sorcerer King is a very interesting 4X game and it's one I started playing recently and I've been kind of absorbed by it, and I'm not necessarily a very good player of it, but I thought I would make a video containing 6 tips that at least help me to improve my play a lot. So I hope you're gonna find them useful, and let's start. Tip number 1 is pay attention to your report button. Once you see a exclamation mark, it's normally pretty important to check it out. As you can see here, when I hover over it, it says a minor race is willing to talk now. So when you click on report and diplomacy, you see here all the races I've met. And you see either this little talking button is either highlighted or not. The interesting thing is when you meet a new race, they will probably have a quest for you in order to increase your standing with them. But they won't give that automatically to you, so you actually have to click the button to speak to them, and then they give it to you, and that's you can see by this exclamation mark. So that's very important. Also, once you are allied, you can talk to them, which I will do now with the Ice Lords here. And I can actually request stuff like crafting supplies, soldiers, or potions. So I'm just going to click on potions here, and then I get some elixirs and potions. So basically, be sure to, whenever you see this exclamation mark, to click on it and to talk to the races to see what's happening, because well, you can get a lot of bonuses from them. Tip number 2 is be careful with your logistics. As you can see here, I have 18 logistics as indicated by this Roman helmet icon, and your logistics basically tell you how many units you're allowed to have. And when you click, for example, here on city, I can train units and you can see how much logistics they cost. For example, here these all cost 1 logistics. However, if I want to increase my logistics for more units, I need to build something, for example, like a barrack, and that improves my logistics, but it also decreases my food supply, and food supply is very handy in order to increase the area of your city, so you can get more food and more production and stuff. So you don't really want to hamper your city in its growth. So it's kind of a trade-off you have to make between more logistics and less food. So think twice about whether you really need a unit or not before you build it. And there's something else special about logistics. It doesn't only count for units. For example, here I've got a outpost and I claimed a mine, a crystal mine. And as you can see, a crystal mine also costs 1 logistics. So here, for example, is somewhere, yeah, here. There is a metal mine, and I could claim that if I wanted to with another outpost, but of course I have to think about it because it will also take a logistics away. Now at the moment I'm pretty far in the game, I've got plenty of logistics, but early game these are choices you have to make. Do I want some more metal, or do I want more logistics to produce more units? Stuff like that. So this trade-off is definitely there, and be careful about it. Tip number 3 is be careful about equipment. If you click on equip, you can see that you can actually equip all of your units and hero. But there is something very special about equipping, and that is the fact that you can also enchant your equipment. So for example, here I've got my hero who has a combat rating of 47. However, if I just add all these accessories to him, he suddenly has a much higher combat rating of 57. I can also, for example, add this Band of Might plus 1 attack, and then I have a combat rating of 58. However, the greatest thing about these accessories is even if the accessory itself isn't that great, you can still enchant it. So if I go to my Band of Might, you can see here my hero, Band of Might, then I can choose different things to add to it. For example, for this one, I like to have plus 2 physical attack bonus, which I add. And then my Band of Might suddenly became better. It actually gives plus 3 attack instead of plus 1, and my combat rating went up with 59. So if you even have a lot of accessories that you don't really see the use of on your character, just add them and add good enchantments, because it really brings up the combat rating of your hero and other units a lot. And thus you can basically take down armies way easier and way more efficiently. Tip number 4 is be careful about lairs. So lairs are kind of funny in a way. As you can see here on the map, there are these craters, and these craters will keep spawning enemies, in this case a garrote. and I can kill that grot and then just go away, and soon there will be another enemy there, so they will just keep spawning enemies. And this has an advantage: it gives you a lot of basically farmable experience. However, it's not always nice, because if you have some cities that you kind of left alone, that you don't really have your heroes around at that moment, and then suddenly, let's say there was a lair here and enemies keep spawning and attacking my city, that's not very fun. So you have to make a bit of a decision. Do I want to farm more experience from this lair, or do I just want to trash it? So as you can see here, I already killed the monsters on this lair, and if you just right click on it to walk on it, you clear the lair, and then you get some extra equipment, how do you call it, crafting ingredients, and then it's actually gone and it will not spawn any creatures anymore. So that's how you get rid of the lairs. So basically make the decision whether you want to farm them or not, and then after a while clear them. Tip number 5 is be aware of your crafting possibilities. Your list of crafting recipes increases all the time. You can either get them by, for example, building a library, or you can get them from enemies that you loot. And there might be some fun surprises in here. For example, I really like things like warrior spirits here that gives you plus 50 experience, and you can feed this to your units or heroes. For example, if you get a hero from a race and that hero is level 1 or something, you can feed it a lot of warrior spirits to quickly increase its abilities and strength, and then it can lead an army on its own fairly well. So I really like these warrior spirits for that. Sometimes you also get books of experience from enemies, so be sure to check those out in your equip. Like here's a book that can give me plus 2 to dodge, but there's also books that give you pluses to experience, so they're very useful for that. Another one I really like is the tent. This immobilizes the army for 1 turn, but it replenishes 100 hit points. This is extremely useful, as the base healing per turn is fairly low in this game, I found. So you can't just keep skipping turns in order to heal up your army, or well, you can, but it's not very efficient. And the tent gets away with that problem by basically just leaving your army for a turn and then healing it up. And the crafting recipe is fairly cheap. You need some spider silk, some nectar, and some wolf pelts. And well, I've got plenty of those, so it's a good way of keeping your army ready to fight for another day. Tip number 6 is don't really be afraid of expanding fast. So while most 4X games have mechanisms that punish you for creating too many cities, for example in Fallen Enchantress there's the Unrest mechanic, and in Galactic Civilizations 3 and Endless Legend and Endless Space have similar mechanisms where the population gets unhappy if you have too many cities or planets. Such a mechanism is not really in place in Sorcerer Kings, so basically you can just expand as much as you want. Of course, there's only limited place for cities. For example, I couldn't just build a city here. I have to find places that actually have resources, like this one here, where you can see the icons. But that said, once you find them, don't be afraid to make a city there. The only negative point I found is that the Sorcerer King doesn't really seem to like it. Like every time I build a city, he says, ooh, I don't really trust that you are expanding so fast. But there's not that many negative effects I found for that. Of course, I haven't really played on the higher difficulty setting, so I'm not entirely sure how it is there, whether he really gets super angry if you make too many cities. But at least on the lower to middle higher difficulties, he doesn't really seem to care at all. So in that sense, don't be afraid of expanding fast, because you get a lot of magic mana from it, and yeah, basically you can produce more units, more logistics, more everything. So having multiple cities is great. Also, they give you a lot of zone of influence, which is great for example, the Windwalk spell, where you can teleport your units within your zone of control. So I could teleport a unit from here all the way there because I have a zone of control there. So yeah, so don't be afraid to expand too fast. So these were my 6 tips for new players of Sorcerer King. I hope you find it useful, I hope it improves your play a bit, and see you next time.